All right, we're here with Jim Costa and my circa 1790 flintlock rifle. We're going to shoot it for the first time since it's been restored. Jimmy's going to tell us how to do it.
Well, since the old way of measuring the proper charge for a bullet for these old rifles, the way the old timers did it, we're going to they would put the ball in their hand, and as soon as you had a cone of black powder that would cover that ball up, they'd remove the ball, and then whatever amount of gunpowder, granular powder they had in here, that was a proper charge, the displacement of that gunpowder for that particular caliber. And of course, the bigger the ball, the more gunpowder that it's going to displace, to cover the ball up. Well, this is things running close to 40 caliber, and I was just going to shoot start off with about 30 grains. This is a manufactured extendable charger grain measure, and it'll go up to 120 grains of powder. So I'm going to set it down here at about 30, and we're going to charge out of the horn. I'm going to fill this up from the horn.
Talk about that horn, Jimmy.
That horn was made probably around 1808. It came through Greenbrier County. It was probably made for the militia. There was a hornsmith that made horns. The Greenbrier County militia ordered horns one time, and we're pretty sure this is one of them. There we go. So this is what we call, the granulation size is called 3F. That's what you typically shoot in these old rifles. The bigger the caliber and you get into shotguns, you're shooting 1F and 2F, but 3F is really good for a rifle. Well up into the 50 calibers, you can still use this granulation. I'm just going to try to keep from wasting it. So anyway, let me just drop this down just a little bit. Oh, not up, down. There we go. So this isn't really you could probably do a larger charge, but I'm just going to go with about 30 here. So anyway, so you tighten this thing up and you pour it down the muzzle. And traditionally, see, you would have had, like, this is for a 45. This is an old bone. It's not old, it's a replica. That's a bone charger that throws the proper charge for a 45 caliber, and this is a loading block which expedited your loading system. If I had a 45 caliber, I could lay that block right on top of the muzzle, and the ball's already patched, and I can push right out of that block right into the barrel. Now, if you don't have a loading block, here's what you had to do, which a lot of people didn't use loading blocks. You got to lay your bullet. You take your cloth and you lay it up here like this, and you put the ball. There's a mark on this ball where it was made in the bullet mold, and you put that mark, the sprue as it's called, you normally put it down. So here's what you normally did. If you didn't have a pre-cut patch, you cut off of a big cloth. Let me get this rifle here where I can get a hold of it.
What's the story on that knife?
It's homemade. A boy made it and gave it to me. This patching is really too thin. Tell you what we're going to do. I'm not going to cut that. We really need a little heavier patch, but to start this thing off, we'll just do this. Let me just cut a piece off here so we don't have to deal with all this. The idea was you don't need any more cloth than it takes to cover the bullet into the rifling. It can be tough too. Oh man. Let's see here again. Now, normally you'd spit on this patch. They just wet it a little bit, and then you put it up here. If you loaded your gun for a length of time, a lot of old timers, a lot of these old rifles had a what they called a patch box. It's really a tala. They'd pour tala, and they would load their rifle with a grease patch because they knew they were going to leave it for a long time. But this patch is a little light. I can tell by the way it's holding. Yeah, it's just barely sliding easily in. So I'll tell you what, for this ball that we have, which is a 385, if you had a 390 and that patch, it'd be better. If you didn't, the 385 with pillow ticking, mattress and pillow ticking is thick, or you know that's what really works good on these. And you don't. Let me see. This thing seated itself. You don't tamp a rifle. You just seat the bullet. Now, old shotgun or something, you know, you'll tamp your load down, but on a rifle you don't. So the idea is you've got this. I'm gonna take this pouch off. So flintlock, this one has the set triggers on it, and that back trigger has a mechanical spring that where you would typically have to have the pressure on the front trigger with your finger. The mechanical spring kicks the front trigger off. Now you do have to pull the front trigger, but this set trigger they would set. You've got a little spring, or a little screw here, and it will set the tension on how easily this front trigger has to be pulled. And a lot of old fellas, you talk about a hair trigger, you can literally make you could get well under a pound of pull on that trigger if you wanted to. They normally measure the trigger pull by the pound. So this one's set, well, let's see here, I'll go on the underside. See how very little movement that it had. So when this trigger goes off, it literally sets this trigger off, which knocks the shear in the lock. It's a chain reaction. So we're cocked. We've got now. This old rifle does not have a second. It doesn't have a. This is my. Yep, there goes my little patch, my plug. So this is your pan, this is your frizzen, and this is the hammer or the cock. That's the flint. It's a flint lock, and that flint will strike this frizzen, put hopefully a shower of sparks down in the firing pan, in the priming pan. There's a hole in the side of that barrel that goes back into the breech, where that 30-some grain of black powder is back in here now. So the idea was, once you got the load in it, the next thing you do is put priming powder. Now that powder is a lot finer. In fact, it's 4FG. And the idea is, the smaller the granulation, the more you're more insured that you got that little powder, that little stopper. The finer the powder, the easier it is to be ignited by that spark. So old timers, a lot of them, if you've got a really what we call a hot lock, and since we haven't fired this yet, we don't know what we've got. It seems to be throwing pretty good spark. But a lot of people primed right out of their main horn, which is 3FG. But really, to ensure that the thing's going to go off, it's better to use that fine powder, and a little bit of spark from that will ignite that. So we're going to see what's going to happen. So here we close I put a little more in than I needed to. We close that. Now, go ahead. I am going to set this. This gun probably hadn't been shot in 100 years. As much stuff was in the bore of it when we cleaned it. So we'll see. Well, heck, let me get my other chair here. That rock was not going to work. See what we come up with here. Okay. So we're going to see if it's going to go off. You may want to go out. Can you get a shot of it from the side, or is that good enough right where
Maybe. Yeah, we should be all right.
Okay, well, we're going to see what's going to happen. This thing has a really heavy barrel and a really good thick breech plug. We had it all apart. I cleaned the barrel and did all the repairs that was needed to be done to it, and so it should shoot all right. Now we're going to see. If it doesn't ignite that pan powder, the firearm is not going to go off. Where are my safety glasses, Jim?
I don't know.
Here they are. I don't know. I'm not really afraid of it.
Don't try this at home.
I haven't shot a flintlock so long. All right. Ready?
Yep.
Here we go.
There she went.
So it shoots, James.
I'm glad to see it. You should wear those glasses all the time.
And that's a good ignition. That was a good ignition. There
Yeah.
wasn't any pause between it. See, that's the thing too. Flintlocks, you know, a lot of people, guy was telling me about shooting one. And what happens when you haven't shot one for a long time and they'll pause, you start flinching because you don't know when it's going to go off. And
There's
yeah,
still some smoke coming out.
yeah,
of there.
that's
I don't know
smoke
if you
coming
see
out of
it.
your barrel. Yep, yep. Yep. So there, we
There it
fired
is. First time in maybe 100 years that thing's been
Yep,
fired.
Yep.